Okay, it's not the most timely movie, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. Phoebe Rizzo here. Shout out to the Void. How's everybody doing? So, Trick or Treat. Probably should have reviewed it back in October, but since I was trying to focus on movies I had never seen and where I could give first impressions, I have seen Trick or Treat many times, so doesn't quite fit that exact theme. So, however, while I'm highlighting some favorites, Trick or Treat's pretty high up there, actually. Now, as I stated back in my VHS review, I'm a sucker for anthologies. And this is another one of those. And admittedly, I think it does the anthology thing a bit better than VHS does. I mean, don't get me wrong, the sequential short, several short stories bookended by an overarching thing works fine. Very creep show. But Trick or Treat does it one better, and it takes four stories. Some places on the net say five, but really, I think the fifth one they're calling out is just an extension of another one. So four main stories that interweave completely. So you'll start one story and follow it for a while, but you'll see elements of another story, or even just a few scenes from one of the other stories, and it kind of puts together into a cohesive whole. Occasionally you'll jump back and forth along the timeline as the night goes on. Usually it'll give you a good cue as if a little earlier sign will pop up. But it's easy enough to follow, and it's all happens on the same night, in the same town. It's just four people's days are going very strangely. And the individual stories themselves are a lot of fun. This movie isn't scary really by any means, but Halloween doesn't always need to be scary. It kind of takes that horror element and just makes it fun. It's one of the better Halloween movies I've seen. Nothing I've seen can really capture the spirit of the season kind of the way Trick or Treat does. I mean, even if you boil down certain movies like, say, the original Halloween, really at its core, it's a serial killer stalking babysitters, which having it happen on Halloween lets the masks in and some cool pumpkin shots. But for the most part, it really didn't have to happen on Halloween. Most movies that are set on Halloween are kind of similar in that regard. They don't necessarily have to, but Trick or Treat, everything about it is Halloween. And nothing really gets that far along with it other than this one. I mean, then Trick or Treating's covered, carving jack-o'-lanterns, the old warnings about checking your candy, Halloween costumes, Halloween pranks, and and even some of the dressing up in risque costumes to flirt. It's all there. So the stories in general, the first one involves a young boy, pretty much a bully who's smashing pumpkins and taking more candy than he should, running afoul of the school principal who, well, gives him some poison candy. And that's about the principal trying to hide a body. Much to, well, his trying to avoid detection by both his son and the neighbors, and it plays it pretty lighthearted considering the fact that he just poisoned a kid on his front stoop. From there, it jumps to I'm trying to remember the exact order of them because it starts interweaving a little bit more after that. From it starts going back and forth between a group of kids collecting jack-o'-lanterns to go to a spot where a famous massacre happened. A school bus was driven off into a canyon, and they want to pay their respects to the dead there, and are taking a girl that they don't know nearly as well, who I could be wrong, but seems to be on the autism spectrum. They say some rather unflattering descriptions of her, but that's where I believe she kind of fits in. But so they take her down there to try to scare her, and things happen. Mixed with another young girl whose more promiscuous friends and older sister are trying to encourage her to go find a guy to bring him back to a Halloween party, but she also seems to be being stalked by another mysterious masked man. And this one has a fun turnaround as it goes back and forth with it. A lot of the movie does subvert some expectations along the way, and in some fun ways. The final bit more focuses around, well, Sam, there on the cover. He kind of appears in all the stories, but he seems to be acting as like a guardian spirit of Halloween, who anyone who's disrespecting the season feels Sam's wrath, including a particularly cranky old man who's scaring away kids and pretty much stealing any candy they drop as he's just trying to weather the night. But, well, that doesn't work when Sam's around. So, the movie's fun. It's a very lighthearted take on all of this. It's brutal at times, and some of the gore is pretty impressive. But it never loses sort of a tongue-in-cheek vibe. It never goes quite so far as to wink directly at the camera, but it's having fun with itself. Which really is what the most you can ask for a Halloween movie. It's a good one to queue up at a party or with a big group because it's fun. The acting is, for the most part, incredible. So there's some weird performances here or there, but really that just kind of adds to it. It's definitely a love letter to the season. I think that's all on this one. I should have one more before I kind of do a big send-up birthday marathon, but we'll see if I have time for that. Otherwise, Halloween, 5 out of 5 MacGuffins. I don't know if I stated the year for this one, but it's a 2007 film, so it's getting up there now, about 13, 14 years. And I know they've been trying to get a sequel going for quite a while, and there's still one listed in development, but it's getting to the point where I'm starting to not hold my breath, which, considering how much of a cult classic Trick or Treat's become, I really hope it gets there. Alright, so take care everybody, and have a good night.